But the moral of the story is when situations get hard, run away from your responsibilities. What's good, TCG? It's your boy Boski, and today we are checking out why Omni-Man's actions make perfect sense. See, I don't think what he did was justified, especially after telling Shorty Doo-Wop that she's nothing more than a pet. I don't think that's just, but maybe he can, explain to me why it makes sense. Make sure y'all like, comment, share, subscribe, comment twice because it helped me in the algorithm. Let's get into this.
Did you make me do this? You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark. You'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet. You'll live.
Look at Mark's face though, bro.
Crumble to dust and blow away.
That was the moment everything changed. In one
Facts.
brutal scene, Omni-Man rips off the hero mask for good, shattering everything we thought we knew about him. But here's
He also shattered about 10,000 people in a moving train, and we gonna say that makes sense. Innocent bystanders got turned into fucking applesauce because of him.
the thing. When he calls his wife a pet and talks about humans like they're insects, he's not just being cruel for the sake of it. This is genuinely how he sees the world, and that's what makes Omni-Man so fascinating.
But we're justifying
He's not
it.
twirling
How?
a mustache and take over the world. From his perspective as a Viltramite who's lived for thousands of years, everything he's saying makes perfect sense. The truly terrifying part? When you really think about it, there's a cold logic to his argument. Compared to his species,
Okay,
we are
what's the
weaker,
logic?
shorter-lived beings. He's operating on a completely different scale of existence. That's why this scene hits so hard. It's not just shocking violence.
But the
it's the moment
Viltramites-
you realize Omni-Man isn't evil in the traditional
But the Viltramites are only good. Like some of the Viltramites, hell, half of the Viltramites got eradicated because they were too weak. It was a power struggle. Only the strong survive type shit. Shout out to Peso Pete. The Viltramites can mate with anybody, literally based on their genetic makeup. It's just better for them to, mate with people of Earth. But how are we justifying what he did, though?
sense. He's something much more complicated. There's one thing he keeps bringing up to Mark, how much time they have, how long they live. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest clues to what's really driving him. Their insanely long lifespan isn't just a fun sci-fi detail, it's a core part of his psychology. But what makes Invincible different is that it doesn't ignore this. Instead, it dives into it head on, showing the harsh truth in a way that feels honest and more real than what you usually see in superhero stories. Let me explain how. Omni-Man has been around for centuries. He's seen whole civilizations rise, thrive, and eventually fade away.
And he also
From his
helped
point
eradicate
of view, human lives
civilizations.
are incredibly short. Sure, they're beautiful, but in the grand scheme of things, they're just a blink. Now, when he compares his wife to a pet, it might sound horrifying to us, but if we stop and think about it, it's kind of like how we view short-lived creatures. We might
What you mean? I don't just go and destroy a butterfly for the sake of it being a butterfly. Now, spiders, mosquitoes, flies, cockroaches, yeah, they gotta go. But like a butterfly, a caterpillar, an ant, I don't be, catching bodies on them like that whatsoever. So I'm not seeing how we're justifying Omni-Man. Are we saying that our moral compass versus a Viltramite's moral compass just doesn't weigh the same?
admire the beauty of a butterfly or a mayfly, enjoy their presence while they're here, but we don't really mourn when they're gone. In a way, his emotional detachment is similar. He might still love his wife. And of course, he'll remember their time together with some
But
warmth.
then why would
But
you
to
call
him,
her a pet
that time was so
if
short.
you still love her?
Like a nice coffee date you had with a friend. Pleasant.
She think it's a bitch though. Look at this. You see this 90-degree slope? That's wagging.
And meaningful in the moment, but brief. That's what their whole life together feels like for him. As a result, he can't experience life the way we do. Moments like starting a family, getting married, or raising a child mean a lot to us because our lives are short. But it's different for Omni-Man. His life is much longer, which makes us seem very temporary in his eyes. That's why it's hard for him
But
to
that's only
form
if you think
emotional
about it
bonds.
as temporary.
And it's not just him.
Because still your average person can live, you know, in their 70s, 80s, or 90s. So that just means he can at least get bare minimal 65 years. That's from birth though. He can at least get 30 to 40 years, depending on when he meets the girl and marry. He can at least get like 30 to 40 years with a person. Regardless if he can live for like thousands of years, in the grand scheme of things, that 40 years is just like a grain of salt. I don't know though, bro. I don't know. Why not just be a pimp? Like why not just be a man whore? You know what I'm saying? Why not be just like Nick Cannon and just shoot up the club on 10 different people? Just get them pregnant. Juice them up. Why not live that life instead of living the family man life just to call her a pet? That's what I'm not getting.
This kind of thing happens whenever two beings have very different lifespans. Think about Oliver, for example. His mom sends him to Earth with Mark because compared to humans,
like he
Thraxons
smashed a
age so
fucking
quickly.
mantis,
she knows
bro.
Oliver's going to outlive all of them, and she's not wrong. By the time Oliver is old enough to start making friends, those friends will already be racing ahead of him. They'll grow
How
up,
your
have
eyes got
kids,
wrinkles?
and die, while Oliver is still just a kid. Later on, maybe he'll befriend their children who are around his age, but the same thing will happen again. They'll grow up, move on, and leave him behind. Species whose sense of time doesn't align just aren't naturally compatible. It's that simple. And the same thing applies to Omni-Man on Earth. We don't know a ton about Omni-Man's past, but how many partners has he had before Debbie? How many planets has he done this on? We have no idea. For Nolan, this could be just another routine assignment, like a week that came and went. But for us, as humans living on
Season
Earth,
1, that's
watching
when
what he's
Invincible
done,
was
it looks
animated
like
crazy.
pure evil. From our perspective, it's horrifying, but from his, it might just be another Tuesday.
But taking on aliens in another dimension? That's just Tuesday.
Now, you might say, well, we don't cry over butterflies either, but we also don't invade their homes, but Omni-Man does. So the question is why? And the answer isn't that the Viltramites are just inherently evil. It's not that simple.
They
have
kinda
built
got
their
to.
entire culture around strength and conquest. Not because they're just villains, but because they're trying to solve a deep psychological issue. When you can live for thousands of years, what really gives your life meaning? Pleasure eventually loses its charm, relationships fade, even love starts to feel hollow when you experience it endlessly. And that sense of meaninglessness, that's exactly the core reason behind the existence of the Viltrum Empire.
But like if the Viltramites just happen to conquer all the planets and did their, we're gonna take over your planet, juice up your women, make more Viltramites, eventually it's all just gonna be, well, I guess it wouldn't if everyone can live for thousands of years. Are they trying to, on some sinner shit, and I'm gonna use this a lot, only because I just seen the movie, are they trying to just like make everyone like them, but they was a detriment to their own society? I'm not understanding how he's making this make sense.
Imagine a bunch of people who are going to live for thousands of years. In the first 70 years of life, maybe they'll experience everything. Love, joy, sadness, success, wealth.
But to do that
Maybe
repeatedly for
they'll fly
1,000
through
years
galaxies,
would be
explore
mad
the
tiring.
universe. Let's say all of that excitement lasts 300 years, then what? What's left to give their life meaning after that? But a grand purpose? Building an empire that stretches across the universe? Serving something bigger than yourself? That can actually give real meaning to an immortal life. When you've lived long enough that personal experiences start to lose their weight, dedicating yourself to a greater cause might be the only thing that still feels real. Eventually, this mindset becomes the foundation of Viltramite culture, a harsh and lasting system where only the strongest survive. Because ideologies and beliefs can change over time. New people with new ideas can show up and completely shift the direction of an entire society. And if the Viltramites were exposed to constantly changing values like that, those values would eventually lose all meaning too. But a system built on strength, where survival and loyalty to the Empire are the only rules, is simple. It's easy to follow, and that makes it stable. Since natural selection doesn't work the same way for them as it does for other species,
They did my
this
nigga
brutal
Alvin
system
wrong, bro.
ends up filling that role.
Call him
For
Alvin.
a perfect
Allen,
example
my
of
fault.
this mindset in action, just look at Conquest. He's basically the embodiment of everything the Viltramite Empire stands for. This guy has lived so long and fought so many battles that he doesn't even feel pain anymore. When Mark hits him with everything he's got, Conquest just laughs and asks for more. Fighting is
Freaky
his entire
timing, too.
identity. He's completely lost himself in the mission of the Empire to the point where his own life means nothing compared to Viltrum's goals. That's why he keeps going. That's why he smiles through blood and broken bones. For Conquest, the mission is all that matters because without it, he'd just be another immortal being with nothing left to live for.
Or he's just a fucking psychopath. You ever just thought of that? Like, I can understand, like, thousands of years of catching body and just painting people and getting pained and breaking bones and getting, like, whooping ass and getting your ass whooped. I can understand that. But what if he's just a psychopath?
To us, it looks like maybe evil, maybe monstrous or tragic, but to them, it's the most logical way to live. Omni-Man, Conquest, and Viltramites aren't just evil for the sake of it. They are the product of their species, their culture, and the overwhelming burden of time itself, and they believe the cause. Omni-Man shows us this very clearly, especially in the scene where he fights the Guardians of the Globe. The moment the scene starts, he enters the frame with a deadly punch. No warning, no explanation. He just goes straight
Tom
for the
and
kill.
Jerry, bro.
Everyone's shocked, but he doesn't care.
That
He's
was
a soldier
that
carrying out
part
his
of
mission
the show.
in the
That's
most
episode
efficient
1
way
too.
possible. A
Had
surprise
my
attack.
jaw on the
Later,
ground,
when he
bro.
talks to
I was not
Cecil, all he
expecting
says
that.
is, "Do you think you can stop me?" That's it. No explanation, no justification, because honestly, he doesn't care what Cecil or anyone else thinks. The only thing that matters to him is the Empire, and serving a purpose bigger than himself. But everyone who don't know his mission is thinking the same thing. Why? We're all asking it, both as viewers and within the show itself.
Facts.
The characters keep trying to get answers, but they never really do, because Omni-Man doesn't feel the need to explain himself to anyone. He's not trying to make a statement. But when he finally confronts Mark, that's when we finally start getting the answers we've been waiting for. We learn how he really sees humanity, what his purpose on Earth was supposed to be. But then, just when we think we're getting somewhere, the show flips everything again. He abandons his mission and flies off without giving any real explanation. And that's when it clicks. Maybe he doesn't see humanity, his family, or even his son as insignificant as he claimed. All those things he said, they weren't really meant to convince Mark. He was trying to convince himself. As a Viltramite, he's supposed to see emotions and attachments as weaknesses. But over time, somehow, he developed those very connections he was meant to avoid. And this is what makes him so compelling for me. He's caught between two worlds, the immortal, purpose-driven culture of the Viltramites and the messy, emotional, but deeply meaningful connections he's formed on Earth. When he flies away at the end, he's not just leaving Earth, he's running from the conflict inside him. He can't figure out how—
But he's also running away from the fact that the Viltrumites were about to kill him. The fact because he didn't conquer Earth. He had one job and he didn't do it.
how to balance what he was taught
That nigga my dad for real.
with what he started to feel. He spent centuries believing in the Viltramite way, cold, logical, and focused on the bigger picture. But after living on Earth and feeling real love, he's starting to question if that way of thinking is truly right. And that's the real tragedy of Omni-Man. He's not evil, he's lost. Lost between timescales, between cultures, between duty.
I need to understand how powerful and strong you are to withstand a black hole.
Himself to finish his mission, we see something deeply human in this strong being, doubt. Maybe that's the show's most powerful message. No matter how long you live or how powerful you become, meaningful connections can still change you. They can make even the most certain, most conditioned being question everything they thought they knew. And in the end, that's what makes Invincible so compelling. It gives us godlike characters, epic stakes, and brutal fights, but at its core, it's about something deeply human. The inner struggle between what we're told to believe and what our hearts tell us is true. Thank you so much for watching.
W videos, Emmy Rain. W video. Was Omni-Man actions in them actually made sense? I don't know. But the moral of the story is, when situations get hard, run away from your responsibilities. Make sure you slice that like button. If you can't like the video without liking the video, make sure your post notification bell is on so you know when I'm always posting. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.